The Utah Jazz get an important loss, and an even more important loss considering it was the Raptors. Let's talk about it. It's the Hoops Nerd postgame show. All right, guys. So the Utah Jazz lose to the Toronto Raptors. This was a big loss for the Utah Jazz. The Raptors now, after tonight's win, are tied with Brooklyn and close to dropping below Philadelphia, too. One more win for them, and they're in bad shape, at least in lottery odds. They've won 3 in a row. They and the New Orleans Pelicans are 5-5 in their last 10. They're dropping while other teams are trying to rise, especially the Sixers, who only keep their pick if they're top 6. So there's no way they're not going for it at this point. And guess what? Toronto's next, I think Dre on the live stream was mentioning this, but Toronto's next 3 games are like 2 games against the Wizards, a game against, I think it's Philadelphia. So that's going to be a tank off as well. Interesting stuff. I like the Toronto Raptors, some of their guys. I was really impressed by Scotty Barnes' defense. I know he's getting a lot of flack. Like if you listen to the latest Bill Simmons podcast, you probably listen to them talk about his, 3-point percentage, which hasn't been as good this year. But man, did he make some big defensive plays against the Jazz. And if that team filled their whole roster with good defensive talent, you could see how quickly they could become pretty interesting. Quickly was nice tonight. I was excited to watch a little Jacoby Walter, and he looks pretty decent. So, there's some things with this Raptors team that are nice. They go out and get Ingram for cheap, and I don't know if I agree. I don't know what the point is. I guess it's so that next year they just go for it, which is fine. I guess they're probably just hoping they win the lottery and get Cooper Flag, which is obviously very possible. And I felt bad for Raptors fans last year when they missed their top 6 pick. I mean, they at post-trade deadline last year for the Raptors, they only won 2 games and ended up losing their pick because they got jumped twice, and it was top 6 protected last year. Situation is exactly the same for the Sixers, so going to be interesting to watch. All right, let's talk about the Jazz a little bit. Not really a lot to say. Utah was not interested in winning this, but there were a few interesting things. The number one was Walker Kessler. He nearly had a triple-double with blocks tonight with 25 rebounds, 18 points, 8 blocks, just bonkers numbers for Walker Kessler. Holy smokes. And he's just really figuring himself out as a player and what he can do. And there's no question that he can just flat out get better. Utah might be looking at him as of all the pieces on the team right now. I guess we don't know about Taylor Hendricks. So Taylor Hendricks is excluded because we didn't get to see what he does this season. But Walker Kessler is probably the most important player, at least on this roster, to keep. If you're trying to think of who on this roster can become a core piece of the future, that article that Sarah Todd wrote was really good. If you haven't read it yet, go read it. But basically, it gave insight into what the Jazz are doing, and it certainly sounds like the Jazz are going to be bad next year, too. Mainly because Utah wants to keep their pick next year, and we've talked about this multiple times, that it just did not make sense for Utah to go for it next year. It's why we thought that Utah should have gone for it a little more last year, just so they could make sure their pick next year doesn't get lost. But Utah wants to keep their pick next year, but it's top 8 protected, and it's in one of the best drafts we've seen in a long time. Darren Peterson, AJ DeBonsa, Cam Boozer, that draft is absolutely loaded. You get a top 3 pick in that draft, you're getting a superstar. And Utah, Walker Kessler, you could argue, is the most core player because that Lowry Markkanen contract is now going to be at $48-50 million. And Sarah Todd talked about that if Lowry is okay with tanking next year, then he's fine. If he's not okay with tanking next year, then he may find himself on another team that wants to win. So that's definitely something to watch this offseason and something we've talked about on here. I'll probably make a video on that because that article was awesome, and I gotta dissect it, so maybe tomorrow. Let's see. Bryce Sensabaugh shot the ball well tonight. I it's kind of like I'm going off of Sarah Todd's article because it was phenomenal, but I don't know if Bryce Sensabaugh is going to be on the Jazz in a couple years because I don't know if he's NBA caliber. The defense is just not great. He turns the ball over way too much when he's being, ball dominant, and it's just not super impressive. I mean, he can shoot the ball, but these days, finding shooters is not the hardest thing in the world. I mean, you look at the Jazz, they've found a few just in Bryce Sensabaugh. Johnny Juzang can shoot it. Kyle Filipowski is shooting just lights out this season. In fact, let's just open this up. I mean, you look at Kyle Filipowski, he's shooting from three as a rookie 39%. He's almost a 40% three-point shooter as a rookie, which is crazy, crazy numbers. And so I just, you can't just be a shooter anymore in the NBA. The NBA is too talented. It's too much skill. It's, it's just as talented and skilled as it's ever been, the most it's ever been, Back in the day, you could be just a big-time one-skill player, and you could find your way onto a team. Like if you were just an elite rebounder, you could be on a team. If you were an elite shooter, you were getting paid. These days, there's more shooters out there. You got to be more than just a shooter. Like, you look at players like Sam Hauser on the Celtics, or, Svi Mikhailiuk can shoot the ball. You got to be more than that. If you can't defend and all you do is shoot the ball, then you're not going to be on a roster long term. You got to do more. You've got to be multi-talented. And so, that's what you're kind of seeing with this Jazz team is you've got players that are not all multi-talented in the way that you need to be a championship caliber team. It's just getting that much harder. So Bryce Sensabaugh, maybe he figures it out, but he better, it's up to him. If he got in just incredible shape in the offseason, but his body doesn't look much different to me. I want to see guys go into the offseason and come back at 8% body fat. And I want to see you just jumping through the roof. And I want to see your handle tighter. And, this is your shot, guys. How are you not taking yourself and your body to the next level if you're one of these guys? It doesn't make sense to me. KJ Martin is a good example. He's an extremely good athlete. Does a lot of nice things, but he does have to just improve in some other aspects. Tonight, just 2 for 5 from the field, 5 points, 3 rebounds. Sorry. And an assist. He does some nice things, and it's nice to have athletes on the team. I don't know if he'll be on the team next year. We'll see. I'd like to see him on the team because it's nice to bring on athletes, and then if they can develop in other ways, that's great. But we'll see. We mentioned Walker Kessler. He really is and I probably just kind of trailed off there, but he really does feel like one of those core pieces that you'd be happy to keep on the team. But Utah is just not there yet. And according to that article, which is great, Utah's still in teardown. So if someone, I guess Walker Kessler is proving that the Jazz were right to ask for as much as they did for Kessler. We got to remember that this is a Toronto Raptors team that rested Jakob Poeltl because they were kind of interested in losing this game as well. They did not. And Walker Kessler just absolutely crushed this team. So, I don't know. I don't know if Walker Kessler is going to be one of those players that can just be an absolute stopper inside. Maybe. Never say never. Maybe Kessler just gets even stronger. But, man, you can't argue with the production tonight. You want to see your good players do this against bad teams, and that's what Walker Kessler did. So, can't say anything but good things about Kessler. The next step for him is going to be going from good to great. That's really the hardest thing in the NBA. Can you go from a good player to a great player? And that's what they all say. That's the hardest thing to do. So can Kessler do some things where he's, improving as a free throw shooter? Can he be even stronger so that he's not getting backed down by anyone? He can hold his ground even better. There's different ways Kessler can improve, and they seem very, very reasonable things that he can do. I don't know if he's going to ever be a stretch big, maybe, but probably not. But he can get stronger, and he can improve his free throw shooting. Shoot 1,000 free throws a day. And if he can get up to 70%, then gold. Colin Sexton, I'll be honest, I'm tired of watching Colin Sexton play for the Jazz. I'm just kind of, at this point, what is the point? What is watching Colin Sexton go out and play 24 minutes and get 17 points does not really do a lot for me. Tonight, he played pretty poorly. 17 points, 6 turnovers, 3 assists. I don't know. Utah just next season, they're going to have a lot of young guys. They're getting 2 more rookies. One of those is going to be an elite rookie. And I hope we don't watch another season of Colin Sexton and John Collins and Jordan Clarkson taking shots from the Jazz youth. And honestly, like next season, Utah needs to go to the point with those players. If they can't trade them in the offseason or by trade deadline, waive them. Waive them, because it's next season. It's the expiring contract for Clarkson, Collins, and Sexton. And it's interesting that it does. Just waive them and get that open cap space. And then if you want to bring on a bad contract or something like that to get another pick, you do it. But Utah has got to make sure that after the next offseason, they have clear books, because let's say they win the lottery this year and win the lottery next year and get in the top 4 both seasons. They're coming away with great players, and they may want that cap space to fill the gaps come 2-3 years from now. So that's what you're doing. Isaiah Collier's come down to earth a little bit. He still gets 6 assists tonight, which is nice to see, but he only took 4 shots in 29 minutes. It's clear that teams are kind of locking in on him. They've got him in the crosshairs. They're going to try to stop him, and they did that tonight with Collier. 6 assists, 6 points. Not a ton of production, so you'd like to see him develop as the season ends. Can Collier figure out ways to be productive with all these opportunities he's going to get? According to that article, Utah probably looks at him as potentially like a backup point guard of the future, which is great. Collier as a backup point guard is amazing. And if he can figure out that shot, be more consistent shooting it, can figure out different ways to score, and can be a solid defender, then that is incredible. Now, maybe he develops to a point where he's the starting guard of a winning team. Maybe. Or maybe he's just an elite backup guard, because you're going to need those when you're trying to win championships anyway. Utah's trying to fill this roster with stud star talent, and they've got some pieces that look like they could potentially be that, and if they don't, then Utah will continue going until they do. Filipowski. One thing is for sure, Kyle Filipowski is a potential elite offensive player. He just does so many nice things. 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 17 points. He's shooting, like we said, he's shooting 39% from 3 as a rookie. And that was one of the questions with him. Could he shoot? Well, he can shoot, and he can shoot from the best spot on the floor. He takes that top of that free throw line extended 3-point shot, the top of the break 3, above the break 3. There we go. Above the break 3, he's knocking those down, and that spreads the floor in an awesome way. And it was fun watching him and Keontae George. Utah looks at Keontae George as kind of a potential elite 6th man, and 18 points, 8 assists is nice to see. The percentages aren't great, but man, Keontae George with 8 assists is really nice. And it was kind of fun watching Filipowski and Keontae George run pick and roll, because they did really well together. Filipowski with Keontae was fun to watch. And 31 minutes for Key, 27 for Filipowski. Those are great minutes of development, getting some chemistry. And the 8 assists is nice. Led the team, Keontae George. But anyways, Filipowski does so many nice things on offense. I think for him to be successful, he probably needs to be a 4. He's got to get in, like everyone, you've got to get in the most elite shape so that you're playing at a high level, you're moving quickly, you're defending, you're moving your feet. It's what he's got to do. And if he can do that, he can become really solid. And I think his defensive numbers will improve if he's at the 4 and he's moving pretty quickly. He seems to move quick enough that I think at worst off the bench 4, playing next to whether it's Walker Kessler or someone else, John Collins, although John Collins is not an elite defender, but if the Jazz can get an elite defender at all times on the floor at each position, and I think Filipowski can become a high-level defender at the 4. At the 5, it's not looking great. But at the 4, maybe. And when you consider his shooting, he really does spread the floor. So when this season started, I had some questions. Utah was playing him at the 4, and it kind of feels like they already knew this when the season started. And obviously we were just learning because we're not in the Jazz front office listening to them talk and in practices, whatever. But Filipowski definitely can play the 5. You're just not looking at good defense that way. But if he's at the 4 and he's shooting the ball, you're looking at a potential 2-way player. Potential. you know. So, Johnny Juzang, we mentioned Johnny Juzang. He can shoot the ball, although tonight 0 for 2 from 3. I don't think Johnny Juzang is a long-term NBA player. Maybe there's someone out there. He's got pretty good size. He can shoot the 3, but it's the same thing with Sensabaugh. You've got to prove you can do more. And if you're not, then it's going to be tough to stay in this league because it just gets tougher. And every year there's a new crop of rookies. And this upcoming draft is pretty stacked. So if you're not shooting it, if you're not playing at a high level, if you're not improving your skill in all ways, including defense, good luck. Good luck. Another note, Micah Potter played. Not much to say there. Okay, Keontae George did not shoot the ball particularly well, but he did assist the ball, led the team in assists, also had 6 rebounds. Him off the bench is kind of what the Jazz look at him off the bench for the future, according to Sarah Todd, and I guess I kind of agree. I think he can, if he can just continue to improve his percentages, can be an elite off the bench scorer. And we've talked about this multiple times. He can definitely do that. Tonight, 8 assists. He was really playing well. And while we were watching the playback, it was kind of like, can we appreciate his passing more? It was fun watching him play with Filipowski. That is a tough duo to guard. And if both of them are shooting the ball well, if both of them have some chemistry together, Utah has a real weapon there as far as offense. Now, defensively, I'm not sure that's going to be very good. But offensively, that's a duo that could come in and could really score. So it'll be fun to watch them develop together. We'll see if that becomes something, if they can continue to improve, or if they stalemate. We'll see. We'll see. Guys, I think Cody Williams quietly had his best game of the season. Cody Williams tonight was 4 for 8 from the field. He was driving the basket. He was playing with some confidence. 2 for 6 from 3, but these were pretty good. And then 10 points, 2 rebounds. Now, +5 is pretty decent. And he defends, I think we are seeing some signs of life. And I think it was Ben Anderson on Twitter. He tweeted out that post All-Star break, Cody Williams is shooting 43% from 3 since All-Star break. So we're seeing signs of life. It's just a sign that let him develop. It's going to take time. He is not there yet, even remotely close. But he has good size, length. He has a nice skill set. If you can just develop him, he can get stronger. He can build confidence. Then I have no doubt that he can get better. So nice to see. Really nice to see. Forget Malawatch. We've got Flip-A-Watch. Yeah, maybe. Malawatch, there are some people that have Malawatch at like 3 on their draft boards, guys. Malawatch is 7'2". He's huge. He's athletic. At Basketball Africa Academy, I'm not quite sure what it's called. It's something like that. He showed that he has stretch 5 ability and looks pretty awesome. And he's one of those that has kind of picked the game up later and is improving really quickly. I don't know if he's going to be Joel Embiid, but never say never. You never know. Maybe Utah loves him. I don't know. We'll see. But if you could draft Joel Embiid, but a player that actually stays healthy and actually stays in shape, I mean, that's a pretty amazing player. And if Malawatch is that, I don't know, maybe. It's funny. I should watch some, by the way, if you want to see something crazy, look at a picture of Joel Embiid now and go look at a picture of Joel Embiid when he played at Kansas. It's crazy, the difference. It's crazy. The physical change is insane. I don't know. But anyways, that's probably all we got tonight, guys. That was a great... Oh, well, before we do this, let's definitely go to Tankathon. So, Utah now has 22 games left, I think. 15 and 48. Yes, 22 games left, because if this was... Oh, no, 82... How many do we got left? Let's just do the math. Let's see, 82 minus 15 minus 48 equals 19 games left, guys. I believe. 48 plus 15 equals, yeah, 19 games left, guys. That's it. And if Utah can just hold strong, this was an important win. Utah is absolutely doing the right thing. Charlotte almost won tonight against the Cavs. It came down to the last second. and they just barely lost. So that was a huge bummer. But why am I taking these off? But that may happen. And actually, I kind of want to look at Charlotte Hornets schedule. Let's look at what's coming up for them. Charlotte is playing Brooklyn tomorrow. Ooh, maybe. And Brooklyn's traveling to Charlotte, so they shouldn't be too bad. That's at 4 o'clock. Oh, my gosh. And then they play the Heat, winnable game. Or Hawks, winnable game. Spurs, winnable game. I mean, they got a lot of winnable games coming up. Look at, yeah, maybe. If the Hornets can win like 2 of those, maybe. I'm still mad at Luka. Why do I keep taking my headphones off? I'm still mad at fat Luka Doncic for letting the Jazz beat him again. Utah has beaten Luka Doncic twice this year, both because he was fat. When he was on the Mavericks, they beat him, and then on the Lakers, they beat him. It's why I got this freaking bias. I'm so sick of Utah getting these wins against Luka Doncic. Come on. So frustrating. All right, guys. So Utah has this number 3 locked in pretty well. And the question is, can they get to 2 or 1? It would be such a huge win for Utah to get to 2 or 1. So huge. And they're just 2 games back of Washington. The 1 is in play. And that would lock in a top 5 pick. How incredible would that be? All right, guys, let's see if the lottery was today. What would happen? In fact, let's go to the mock. All right, what would happen? Oh, the Bulls jump. Utah drops just 2 spots and gets the number 5 pick. So they just miss out on VJ Edgecombe, which really sucks. Maybe you take Common Malawach. Maybe you take Asa Newell. Colin Murray Boyles is rising on draft boards. What a bummer. No luck this time, guys. No luck. That's why I get to the number 1, because if you drop 2 spots from 1, that means you're at number 3. Right? Man, Cooper Flagg to Chicago would be crazy. All right. Let's give a shout out to the All-Stars. Let's give a shout out to Christian House Money to Haas. Cam Bam, thank you, ma'am. Cam June 3. Ryan Edward Perry, the legend. I Believe in Steve, Jazz Exile, Baby Elliott Madsen, See Ya Lexalator, Jordan the Goat Bastrol, Austin R. Grant Editor Extraordinaire, KG10 to TH5, and Patrick Akubo, the Connoisseur. Guys, if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, especially if you're a Jazz fan. I would appreciate it. In fact, let's just make sure I didn't miss anybody, just to make sure. All right, we're good. All right, guys, like I said, like and subscribe to the channel. I will talk to you next time.